Okay, this meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning and Zoning, Planning Commission rather, is called to order. We're meeting at the Ascension Parish Courthouse, 607 East Worthy Road in Gonzales, Louisiana. The first item is a roll call of the members.
Mark Miller.
Nicholas Miller.
Randy Cluide.
Max Nasser and Attorney Mr. Long. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir. We do have a quorum for tonight's meeting.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Vila.
Yep.
Please.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the introduction of staff. I'm going to ask that the staff introduce themselves, please, that are in attendance.
Stacy Webb, Recording Secretary for the Planning Commission.
Jerry Iskiri, Technology.
Spencer Long, Parish Attorney.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Sean Sorow, Engineer Reviewing Agency.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Okay, thank you. Chairman's comments. I've no comments for this meeting. The next item on the agenda is public comment on any agenda item. This is comment on items that are on the agenda only. Does anyone have comments on an agenda item? Okay, no comments. Staff report. Mr. Fournier.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'd like to introduce Kindig Keys Collaborative. Kindig Keys Collaborative was hired by the parish last year during the moratorium to assist in modifying the Unified Land Development Code. That effort produced changes to the subdivision code related to traffic and changes to the drainage code related to detention, discharge, and wetland preservation. Those changes were presented to the Planning Commission earlier this year and forwarded to the full council for approval. Staff and the development community have been working on with the new ordinances since. Kindig Keys Collaborative has since been looking at modifications to our entire ULDC to modernize and upgrade zoning classifications and other parts of the code. I'd like to introduce now by Zoom Mr. Brian Mabry, who'll be making the Kindig Keys presentation. All right, thank you. If we could get technology to cue them in, it'd be great.
We see him, but we don't hear him.
We can get on. He's asking, can anybody hear me? I can't. My hands are tied.
Next item.
We'll come back to it.
Okay, so we're going to skip over to the next item. We did have some technical difficulty with the presentation. Mr. Fournier?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I sent out a notification to the commissioners earlier this week about planning commissioner training. Pursuant to Louisiana Act 859 and revised statute 33103.1, mandates 4 hours of approved training for planning commissioners, advisory board members, historic district commissioners, and boards of zoning adjustment before or during their first year of public service. There are 2 opportunities to do this year. One is being held October 1st in Tangible Hill Parish, and the other is November, I'm sorry, not November 1st, but it's November 11th, Friday, November 11th in New Orleans. So if you would like to attend any one of those sessions, I sent out the information. You can register online. They're free of charge, but you will have to, drive there. All right. So let me know if you need any more information about that. And that's all I have. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Poche, all right, for his.
Thank you, Mr. Fournier.
Subdivision
Commissioner-
status.
Okay, thank you. You will see in front of you normal subdivision monthly report. The only change noted this month was Windmere Crossing is in construction right now, but they have applied for their final plat. We have had no new subdivision applications. We may be getting one in the next couple of months, but this is what we have now. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the commission? Mr. Miller?
The Cannon Road project has been
Yes.
completed?
The Cannon Road, what they did was they went through and improved the base, moved over the shoulders, and they put their first layer, their tack coat, and they put their first layer of asphalt on it. What they're going to do is now they put temporary striping on it. They're going to get the subdivision streets done, and when they put the final paving surface on those, the wearing course and the subdivision, they're going to do the final course on Cannon Road and do them both at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, next item is engineering report. Do we have an engineering report this month?
There's no reports this evening.
Thank you. Commissioners, our next item is the approval or denial of the minutes of the August 10th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve of
I'll
Mr.
second.
Kluwat, second by Mr. Vila. Any discussion on that? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's passed unanimously. Our consent agenda, we have affidavit for mortgage declaration, Chad Duplessis, Lot CG2A, 43256 Bayou Narcisse Road, Gonzales, Louisiana. Affidavit of mortgage declaration, Scott Guitro, Lot LG6B3A, 12202 Laurel Ridge Road, Santa Monica. Affidavit of mortgage declaration, Robert Dustin O'Berry, Lot 37286 Norris Trails Road, Prairieville, Louisiana. Affidavit of mortgage declaration, David G. Vicknair and Barbara S. Vicknair, Lot C1, 10347 Taylor Sheets Road, Santa Monica, Louisiana. Affidavit of mortgage declaration, Jason Dean Willis and Marcia Renee Willis. Wills. Jason Dean Wills and Marcia Renee Wills. Lot 1A, 42025 George Duplessis Road, Gonzales, Louisiana. Commissioners, do we have any motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Kluwat. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vila. Any discussion on any item? I'm sorry, it's consent agenda. Let's cast your votes, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's approved unanimously. Item 11, public hearing to approve or deny the following family partitions. The first is William A. King, the second, Rhonda King, William Austin King, and Sandra D. Jenkins, Lot 6, B1, B1, 6B1, B2, and 6B1, B3. Quality Engineering and Surveying LLC is in Council District 6. Do we have anyone here to speak with regard to this family petition? Please come to the mic, sir. Thank you, and if you would, for the record, state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Jamie Bordelon. I'm a licensed surveyor for quality engineering and surveying.
Okay, and your comments? Any comments?
No, I don't have any comments unless y'all have any questions about the survey or the submittal.
Commissioners have any questions?
Just the one, the access will be off of Riverside Drive there?
Yes, for 2 of the lots, and then you also have one of the lots that's fronting on Highway 42.
So they won't be required for a 3 or more to have a paved access?
Not that I understand the ordinance, the family partition ordinance.
Okay.
So you have 2 that are accessing the private access, and then you have the one that's already fronting on LA 42.
Mr. Poche?
It's in the creation of 3 or more lots. There's 2 existing lots there, and they're basically creating 1 lot.
Yeah, it's sort of an exchange,
Yeah, it looked like a property exchange for
hybrid
the
sort
lot
of
now.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Miller to approve, second by Mr. Kluat.
Commissioners?
Yes.
We need to open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was the public hearing. Okay, this is a public hearing on
Sure.
William A. King II, Rhonda King, William Austin King, and Sandra D. Jenkins, Lot 6, B1, B1, 6B1, B2, 6B1, B3. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to comment on this particular item? Okay, public hearing's closed. Now, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have the same motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Cast your votes, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 11B, Chad and Lindsay Duplessis property lots CG2A1 through CG2A4. Earls and Associates, do we have someone here representing Chad and Lindsay Duplessis? Duplessis, okay. We said all.
My name's Sean Thibodeau. I'm with Earls and Associates.
Okay. And any comments? Or are you just here to answer questions?
I'm just here to answer questions.
I don't have any.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so you are creating 3 or more lots. So you'll be required to have the 25 by 20 paved concrete coming off of, Biting RCs, I think it is?
Are we?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
They will be. It's noted on the comments.
Okay. And then, does 174026 apply to that, where they have to have drainage ditch on either side of that access?
On either side of the access, they typically will put drainage ditches on either side of the driveway, yes.
Okay, that's what, 174026 D2AI requires that they have drainage on either side. Is that for the full length, or only the 25 by 20 that they're required off of the
We
highway?
just don't have to look.
I believe that note about the 25-foot access is the last note on the map. It has been added.
Do it.
The 3 or more lots
Uh-huh.
having 25-foot, or, I'm sorry, 20-foot wide, the pavement, it is on the map.
Yeah, but it's not on the ground, I saw that.
Oh, right, yeah, but it's listed on the map.
I just want to make sure that everything is checked off right there. Yeah, there's just a single driveway there, so it's
Mhm.
gonna have to be widened.
Right.
And then, that's gonna encroach on that 12-foot utility as well, as I saw.
The 12-foot utility servitude has been moved to the western side
Okay,
of the
that was gonna be
property.
another question I saw, because the power comes off of that Cannon Estates
Hmm.
road.
Okay,
back
right,
there.
the one running along.
So I don't know why they would need I don't think Energy or Demco, whoever it is going to run power all the way from Byron East. They're going to come off the backside right there. There's already transformers in place, so I wouldn't think that that'd be a big problem. Okay, so the utility was already moved. All we need is the access, the drive,
30-foot.
The
25 by
25 foot from the edge of the Parish Road? Right.
And you're just going to widen that existing?
I believe.
The white driveway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll wait on Mr. Eric to see if he's going to require
Which one was that you were mentioning?
174026 D2A1.
Yes, when it accesses 3 or more lots, the minimum construction standard is, that's correct. There has to be a paved road, either hard surface or, I say paved, either hard surface or gravel, 4 inches thick, on a road bed at least 24 feet in width with adequate drainage ditches on the inside. That's correct. And that has to be constructed prior to the first building permit being issued for the lots.
So you'll need a drainage ditch on each side of your driveway. That's my question was, does it extend that full all the way to the back lot, or
Yeah, it
just that
extends
25 by
through
20?
the private servitude of passage, yes.
Okay, so it'll need to be the full length.
Okay, and so those comments will all be reflected on your maps
Okay.
when they're presented to the staff, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
And you have no intentions of connecting to Cannon Estates back there? It'll be only that one road driveway?
It should be just that one road,
Okay, so that
correct?
changes, that becomes a throughfare then, it changes
Right.
everything, okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing on item 11B, Chad and Lindsay Duplessis property, lots CG 2A1 through CG 2A4. Do we have any public comment on this item? No public comment. Public hearing is closed. Commissioners, do we have any further conversation or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Cluett.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
No opposition. That passes unanimously. Item 11C, Howard K. Moore property, lots 2A and 2B. Earls and Associates, once again, welcome.
Long time no see.
And I assume you're here to answer questions again, right?
That's right.
Okay. Mr. Miller, any questions?
Not on this one.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions with regard to item 11C? Any questions?
I have no.
Okay, it's a public hearing on item 11C, Howard K. Moore property, lots 2A and 2B. Any members of the public have comment on this agenda item? No comment. Public hearing is closed. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Avila. Do we have any discussion?
No.
No discussion. Cast your votes, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay. Item, what, D or E?
D.
Item D, we have so many. Roberta O. Rushing property tracks E1A1A and E1A1B. Earls and Associates, welcome.
Thank you.
Here to answer questions, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, any questions?
No.
Nope.
No questions? Okay, this is a public hearing on item 11D, Roberta O. Rushing property, tracks E1A1A and E1A1B. Public hearing. Any members of the public have comment? Yes, ma'am. Please step up to the mic, podium, and I'll ask that you state your name and address for our records, please.
My name is Donna Rushing Robinson. I live on that tract of land. Just had a question about how they would access the property that they're looking at. Is that even the time or the place?
This is the time and place, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Earls?
I don't want it coming across my front yard.
This is you.
Where is, yeah. me,
Okay. There's an existing 40-foot servitude of passage here.
on the bayou.
It's on the property line.
Okay.
And we're creating, or we're proposing a new 30-foot servitude passage to get to this lot. So we're just kind of extending it.
So this is my house right here, so they're gonna drive in front of my house to get home?
Yes, ma'am.
Concrete road, gravel road?
I'm going to ask that, for this is, we have a public record here, and we'd like to understand what y'all are
Yeah, see,
discussing,
show
so if
that.
you
Put
could.
it on the projector.
Correct. Yeah, because I came out there and looked at this property, and it was
My
very hard
question
to
is about-
envision myself of what was going on there.
Okay, so the
He's
question
asking
is whether or
about-
not, by this subdivision, of this petition, rather, the access is going to interfere with your property. Is that your question?
It's gonna run right across the front of it,
Okay.
and that I'm not happy with.
Okay. Now, yes, sir.
This may not be the time to address that.
It is the
but-
time to address it. Thank you.
The exact time.
You were explaining,
Well, I was just saying that there is an existing 40-foot servitude of passage here. And we're proposing an extension or a new 30-foot servitude of passage to get to track E1, A1A.
But the servitude of passage makes it almost sound like there's already a place to enter and exit, and
So.
this is gonna
you're
be
drop
something
it
new
off the
It's
line.
a
installed.
proposed. It's a proposed. You have one, I guess this one's to get to your house, this here?
Yeah,
This proposed 30-foot servitude of passage would be.
would
to get
just
to-
be right at the
Would-
edge of my property line, and, yeah.
Where's your property, ma'am?
She is.
That property, that's what
I'm
I'm talking
Donna Robinson. That area floods, is that not an issue?
I saw that, I went there.
I have had times when the water's come up out of Black Bayou that there's a canoe tied to my front steps.
Your home
My
is the
house
one,
is up off the ground. I thought that would be included on the map,
Your house is the one with the
Well, here's your
curved
flood
gravel driveway?
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that the water doesn't come
Right,
up.
correct.
okay, so what I'm gonna ask is to bring this back to more of a public hearing, that Ms. Robinson, you just state your opposition and the reason for your opposition. We'll ask for a response from the surveyor, and then we will, any other public comment we'll listen to, and then we'll make a determination as to how to move forward rather than having an ongoing discussion.
Okay. Well, I guess make it formal. I have concerns about them accessing their property by driving across the front part in front of my house. I know for a fact that that area does flood. I've lived there for ever. So,
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comment with regard to the latest concerns?
No comment.
Okay. Commissioners, you have, I'm sorry, this is still a public hearing. You have anyone else that'd like to speak in regard to this agenda item? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Amy Touye, and I live the house next door. There is Rosa Road, which is, I don't know, I think it's right here at the back side of the property. I'm not sure if that would be an option for granting access to the property. I don't know how it fall out, but I do know there are roads along Rosa Road, which it would make a, well, I don't know how. Where it says Tracy up here,
Yes, ma'am.
So that's all I was going to share.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comment? Public comment, this is a public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Okay, commissioners, any conversation, questions?
Yes, so currently, is there any kind of roadway in the servitude now to get to that area, I'm gonna say?
Inside the proposed area?
Yeah, so you have a 40-foot servitude of passage, you're gonna extend it,
Mm-hmm.
okay? There's nothing there now.
Probably nothing beyond the 40-foot
No, I'm
servitude.
saying, if it's, like the other public comment, there was a gravel drive shown, there's nothing
Correct.
there. What's the intention that are they gonna put something there, a drive to get to those lots? I would assume,
I would think so, yes.
okay. And then I had a concern, the front part of the lot floods in it, okay? All right. Is the applicant present to speak of their intentions? No?
That's Ms. Touye here.
Oh,
Yes.
so are you the applicant?
I'm not the
I didn't think so.
applicant, my daughter is the applicant, and the plans were to eventually, at some point, possibly build a home, so there would need to be a way in which for her to access that property.
Yeah, I understand that. And early, you were mentioning in the public comment, is there another way? Where were you mentioning to come from
Here's Rosa
behind?
here.
Track E, 1A?
There's Rosa Road,
Yeah,
there's Black Bayou, and then Ott Lane, excuse me, that goes just to it's not up there, Donna Robinson's property. But there's a paved road, Rosa Road, which is behind that property. But I don't know if that's accessible. I don't know what the rules are
Well, I
about,
don't believe the
you know,
people
driving
along
from
Rosa
that
Road
way.
are gonna let you put a driveway through their property.
right.
Right.
It's the same.
That's what I was,
That
The
would be
proposed 30-foot servitude that you have extending, that's already approved and is allowed, or is this something we're still working on?
No, I mean, it's allowed. It's basically an extension of the original servitude of passage that the applicant's putting across her property to access the newly created lot.
Okay. And the gravel driveway that comes off of Ott Lane there, going to Miss, was it Rushing, I believe?
that's not affected.
It looks like that gravel drive is to get to Ms. Robinson's.
That's already in part of the subdivide, or the applied subdivision property, the
So-
E1, A1B.
Excuse me one second. It appears that there are a lot of questions that we don't have answers to,
Mhm.
and the applicant's not here, and I appreciate that her mother was speaking. I would frankly myself prefer to hear from the applicant, since there are a lot of questions we have that no one is really able to answer definitively. Is there a sense of urgency to get this done at this meeting, or could it wait another month?
We can wait another month till we get all the questions answered.
Okay, that's what I would recommend, but, go ahead.
I agree, and obviously, I know a lot of y'all family, so that if there's some way that Elizabeth and Leland, all of y'all can kind of, I don't know, come to try to work it out, or work with Jerome and them to see if that, if that 40-foot servitude is what, because I don't think what you're saying to try to get to it back from the backside is going to be actually feasible.
No, so we're gonna go from Rosa.
There is a paved road
Right.
that runs back there.
And-
My concern is,
No.
I've lived there for 50 years. Well, I grew up on that property.
Right.
It floods.
Well,
That
number
area
close.
where you're looking at floods when you go across.
That's the 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. all for your comments. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't mean to be rude. Our rules allow for 3 minutes for individuals to speak during the public hearing. I recognize you've been asked a lot of questions, and, that's great. I don't mean to be rude by saying I'm going to close the public hearing unless there's someone else that has comments on this particular item. Okay, public hearing is closed. I'm gonna recommend as chairman that I'm going to ask for a motion to defer this to our next meeting.
Commissioner,
Yes.
you're gonna, it's over here, legal. Y'all would either have to approve or deny it at this stage unless the applicant or their representative asks for defer it to the next meeting.
So we cannot defer it to the next meeting?
Yes, that is correct. He would have to ask for deferment.
Oh, you can ask to have it deferred.
Yes.
I
Okay.
recommend you ask to have it deferred.
I ask that we defer it.
Okay. Are we okay now, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Now, do we have a motion?
Motion to defer.
Motion to defer to our next meeting. Thank you, by the way. Second?
Second.
Mr. Vela? Okay. Are those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, we want to get through this correctly and peacefully and make sure that everything is properly addressed. We just didn't feel like we had all the answers that we needed to make a recommendation, or make a decision. Thank you. You're not going anywhere, are you?
Nope, one more.
Okay, 11E, Robert Scheckschneider Jr. property, lots S1 and S2, Earls and Associates. Sir?
I'm here to answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions with regard to 11E?
Nope.
No questions? Okay, this is a public hearing on item 11E, Robert Scheckschneider Jr. property, lots S1 and S2. Is there anyone here to speak either in favor or opposition to this particular item? Public hearing's closed. I'm beginning to like that. Public hearing's closed. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
No.
Comments?
No.
Motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Miller to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kluwat. Do we have any discussion? No discussion. Cast your votes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
See you next.
Maybe not.
Maybe next month. Item,
Commissioner?
Ye- yes.
I think we have the issues resolved. If you want to go back to the front, to the first item, or if you want to continue, I just wanted to let you know.
Let's go ahead and
Continue with the agenda.
Well, we're going to have another presentation also, so let's go ahead and do the presentations now, please. We'll do the presentations.
Okay.
We have two presentations.
Okay, hello everyone again. Brian Mabry, hoping that you can hear me.
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Brian Mabry from Kendall Keys Collaborative. I just have a short presentation for you all where my screen is now being shared to update you on the Unified Land Development Code update that we're working on. This is sort of a check-in, and it's focusing on the residential districts. And we will be taking a look real quick here with some key points of the presentation of consolidating, well, let me say first, of creating a new district that we're tentatively calling Countryside, or abbreviating to CT, that would be mostly for the far east side of the parish, related to the coastal zone. Consolidating the existing conservation and rural districts into sort of an updated conservation district, refining and reworking the residential medium district, and having within those districts what we call development options that are by right options or choices for the applicant that relate mostly to the amount of open space that's being required. And By open space, I mean anything from more formalized parks to less formalized space that's sort of rural in character or natural in character and preserves sort of the rural feel of much of the parish. And I should say also that this project as a whole is not focused on any one property. This is a change to the written rules and to an extent to the map, the zoning map of the parish. It's not about any one certain property or group of properties or corridors. It's the written rules that we're talking about providing changes to. So again, back to that creation of by right development options, they have a lot of advantages to them. They create some flexibility so that an applicant can do different kinds of developments without needing a planned unit development. We try to incentivize the protection of natural resources through the open space provisions that I mentioned, and again, streamlining so that if there are fewer zoning districts, and you already have quite a low number of districts, so we don't have too much consolidation going on. There are opportunities for more streamlining when there are when your zoning districts can take on more different types of development, and then that becomes streamlining when an applicant doesn't even have to ask for a rezoning because the written rules of your ULDC accommodate different kinds of development. So I kind of already mentioned what I mean by open space. It can accommodate tree preservation, stormwater improvements, and a bunch of other things that promote the rural character of the parish. So these go hand in hand with some amendments that we provided you all in April and May, or before that really, but they were adopted in April and May so that the parish continues and becomes even more resilient and sustainable. We have to balance things as we're working through this, and you probably might have seen this slide before. If you're new, you probably haven't seen it, but balancing two different kind of philosophies of, on the one hand, no growth there on the left versus unchecked growth on the right, and having a happy medium where there is responsible growth, sustainable growth, which means that growth can happen in the present, but it doesn't sacrifice the needs of future generations at the expense of them, and fiscally responsible growth so that that the new developments and the services that the parish provides to them pay for themselves, sort of. This is our team very quickly that's working on this. Down at the bottom is Kinda Keist. And then on the right is Tischler Bice. They are more about the financing and the sort of growth paying for itself piece I just talked about, more than the written parts of the code that we are focusing on. Of course, as far as parish staff goes, Jerome and Ricky are really who we're immediately answering to, but overall it's the citizens of the parish council, and the planning commission that are really calling the shots in the end, because you all will make a recommendation to the council when we're at that point for any of the content that's in this update. And then of course the council as a text amendment and a potentially part of a map amendment would be acting, have the final say on that as the parish council and as the legislative body. This gives you an idea of what we've accomplished so far, kind of in a timeline format, starting in August of last year and going and having some orientation and kickoff meetings with different people from the public in the parish, doing a diagnosis of your existing regulations and showing what we believe would be improvements and that would help implement your comprehensive plan. We also did some, as I mentioned, some priority code updates, and a lot of these had to do with drainage, some with traffic and traffic impact analyses, and also some just minor cleanups throughout your Unified Land Development Code. And those were approved in April and May of this year. So now we're in sort of the color phase of the timeline going forward, where we are working on less urgent updates, but still important updates to your Unified Land Development Code. Those will be in two modules or two pieces. We're on the first module right now, which consists of things like the zoning districts, the land uses, excuse me, parking, excuse me, again, parking, landscaping, subdivision standards. Then the second module will be more procedurally oriented. So the steps that are required to review and act on a rezoning or a variance or enforcement and non-conforming uses or grandfathered uses, things of that nature. So it's kind of divided into two main pieces. And we're still in the first module, like I said, leading up to adoption. We have weekly calls with parish staff to update them as to where we are. And sometime this coming fall, we will be giving more likely an in-person presentation on the contents of Module 1 as a whole for you all and for the council. But as I said, this presentation is more concentrating on just the residential districts because those are very important and control sort of how residentially the parish grows in the future. So this is sort of a simplified view of what we're working on, and you can see that work in progress there for a lot of that. We have been working very diligently on this as far as minimum lot areas and the amounts of open space and the density of each of the districts, but they're still in work in progress, just like it says, so that just letting you know that those are not forgotten about, and we know they're important, but they're not quite ready for public discussion yet. So we would, again, as I mentioned in the kind of summary slide, propose there at the top, a new countryside district that would have the largest lots and be the least dense and could apply over, like I said, in the far east side of the parish where there is the kind of the least amount of growth in the most natural area, as the countryside name implies. Combining in that next row, set of rows there, combining your existing conservation and rural district into just calling it a conservation zoning district where there is a base minimum lot area and open space requirements and density, but also a clustering option. And I'll get into a little bit more about clustering in a minute, but where basically the lots are closer together and smaller, but overall there is more untouched open space that gets preserved within the subdivision. We also have, as I mentioned, a residential medium district that we are proposing that would take also part of the rural district and your current residential medium district and combine them so that there's sort of a base option, again, like in the previous district where there's a certain amount of minimum lot area and maybe little to no open space required and a certain amount of density. But then there are clustering options where each one has a little more open space required so that there is still more of a rural feel that gets preserved in that district. And in exchange for that, in exchange for the subdivider going through the trouble and expense potentially of setting aside a large amount of open space, there can be bonuses, lot bonuses, where they would get an increased number of lots possibly in exchange for setting aside that amount of open space. And we know that there are concerns about traffic, and we would be sensitive to that so that we're not just giving away the farm so that there's a huge amount of additional lots that are gained when someone sets aside open space. We'll keep that in mind that we don't want to create a new problem of something like increased traffic where we don't want it just by giving away these additional lots in exchange for the developer setting aside open space. This is the same table, but a different set of images that give you a better idea of what I mean by clustering. This is 3 different scenarios where on the left, 5-acre lots with 18 houses on them, so 18 lots basically, and no open space. Each of these are private lots with their, they could have fences around them or not, probably not on that large of a lot, but these are private lots that may have wooded areas on them, may have whatever they may have, sensitive features or a little bit of topography or other things like that. The middle image is showing 30% open space. So these are the lot boundaries here, the kind of lighter green that I'm tracing over with my pointer. But the darker green is set aside permanently open space, in this case, natural area. There's a 200-foot buffer in this, conceptual drawing here that separates this new subdivision from the existing down here to the south. But, it's a 30% set aside of open space. And in this case, it's drawn so that there wasn't any bonus. It's still 18 houses on 18 lots, as opposed to giving a few extra as a incentive or a bonus for setting aside that open space. And then this third image is 60% open space. So even more is set aside compared to the middle and certainly compared to the one on the left. The lots are still, again, smaller. There's still this buffer in between this new subdivision and the existing one to the south. There could be a floodplain over here that gets protected by this open space being set aside, and the other features that are being protected. Because if, over here on the left, there's nothing stopping anyone, each of these property owners, from just cutting the trees down or whatever and kind of messing up the rural character. But when when the forest or wooded areas or floodplains, are in protected open space, then that really can't be done, because these smaller, paler green sites are each of the lots in this, kind of conceptual drawing here. And a good thing for the subdivider is they're not penalized. It's not that they can no longer build at all on this protected, in this example, floodplain area. They just kind of move the lots that they would have been able to do over here, or that they might have been able to get done over here under, under the floodplain rules, and kind of squeezing them more over onto this side of the property, rather than being penalized for the constraints on the lot. This is a lot of verbiage, but basically it's just, there was a study by the EPA at some point that shows the bottom line being that with clustering and with some of the incentives that come with it, like natural stormwater treatment, maybe narrow, like with swales and things like that, and potentially narrower streets in some cases, that the cost per lot goes down the more that that lots are clustered in this manner. And there already is, as you can see in that upper right aerial photo, there already is some open space preservation going on in the parish, sometimes in the form of water features or natural water areas, like you can see there. But in all, we kind of look at it as sort of a win-win on several accounts, where the public, the general public, gets this open space preserved. The developer or the subdivider isn't penalized for having a sensitive site with wooded areas on it, or floodplains, or other things like that. The reduction in the cost per lot that I mentioned from that EPA study helps the applicant, the subdivider, with costs, but it also can promote more housing affordability, since it costs less to develop the subdivision. And then also, finally, rural character gets maintained with this permanently set aside open space that basically can't be touched. It's not like it would be set aside and then 10 years later a new applicant comes and can try to subdivide it. It's a permanent set aside. So that concludes sort of my whirlwind tour of our thoughts on the residential districts. And I know it's a new material for some of you probably, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions anyone has at the moment, or if you think of some later, if you can get them to staff, they would forward them to me, and I'd be happy to address them that way too.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mabry. I will ask if any of the commissioners have any questions, though I'd like to keep the Q&A brief for the time being.
I don't have any at this time.
Right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Mr.
Thank
Moyer?
you. Have a good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd like to let you know that we, as Brian said, we're continually working with them. We have a Zoom call with them every week, and so we're staying in touch with them. We hope to have them here in the parish in the next month or two to give a live presentation to kind of let you know what we're doing once we get to a conclusion on this first module. Okay? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Fournier, as we go into, we're going to return to the regular agenda, which is going to be item 12 at this point, and this is you had some comment prior to our considering this?
I did. And unfortunately, Mr. Joey Thoreau, who's the parish engineer, is not able to attend tonight. This is something that Joey asked me to bring to you as a planning commission so that we can make a recommendation to the full council to make these changes, all right? But I'd like to preface my remarks first by saying that in 2017, the parish, prior to 2017, the parish didn't have any construction standards in the for that we had adopted by parish. We utilized things from East Baton Rouge Parish. We looked at other places, and we always referenced them in our work. In 2017, we adopted the subdivision construction specifications, and they're part of the ULDC. They're Appendix 14, and you can look at that, and they're how many? There are 16 different sections on that, anywhere from earthwork all the way to the design of sewer plants, right? So one of those is the street construction, and through the course of this work, we have asked, Joey has asked us if we could make some modifications, or one modification, to the base course. And that is to have, and I've outlined it here at the very bottom, sufficient Portland cement shall be incorporated to yield test cylinder brakes of not less than 200 PSI. Currently, it's 250. What we'd like to do is reduce that to 200 PSI because what they're finding out in the field is with the higher PSI that they're finding some cracking that's occurring in the concrete. So we'd like to make that modification and make that recommendation to the full council, all right? And that'll fall in line with the next one. So anyway, I'd like to address that one right now. Right?
Okay, thank you.
So
this is a public hearing to recommend approval or denial to the parish council the amendments to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code. There are two proposed. We're going to take them one at a time, although they are connected. The 12A is amend the Ascension Parish ULDC Appendix 14 Subdivision Construction Specifications, Section 2 Base Course, Part 3 Execution, 3.1C Proportioning, and that was the change in the PSI that Mr. Fournier was just speaking of. So this is a public hearing on that particular item. Is anyone in attendance that would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to that particular amendment to the ULDC? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask the commissioners if you have any questions or discussion with regard to this. Mr. Miller?
It would have been nice if Mr. Truro would have been here to answer these questions because I know he's pretty experienced with this. Reducing to the 200 PSI, do we have any research, any place else that uses a reduced PSI that shows that this more pliable base course is?
I wouldn't have that information. Joey would, yeah. So unfortunately, I can't answer that.
We continue to have these presentations with no feedback, no research. Yeah, I'd like to see something that shows it. I mean, has anyone else done this? Have we seen it in action? Has it been used before?
I'm not sure that right now, but if I could maybe press upon Sean, who's our engineer, and I know I'm putting him on the spot because I didn't brief him on this earlier. But
right. And I'm actually glad you did it because I was considering it.
I got to assume somewhere in Louisiana we've.
That's why I asked him to be here tonight. Yeah.
You really bad. Actually, this one I'm deferring to Joe in this. They've done a lot of research. These are the ones that came with the recommendations based on what they're seeing in the post 1 year maintenance bond inspections. They're seeing a lot of cracking, and there's a lot of very strong areas that Joey's in, and this is definitely one of them when it comes to road testing, road recommendations, construction elements. Typically I've always deferred to Joey on these recommendations regarding actual application and subdivisions, considering that he does this beyond subdivisions and tired of all road projects within the parish himself. It's just, it'd be better off with him speaking more intelligent about the topic, knowing that he's done the research on this and has a little more practical experience than I have, specifically the roads, sub-base, oversight of construction, and post one-year inspections.
Thank you, Mr. Sher. You have any other questions?
Yeah, if, you know, is
Okay.
it possible we could get him here? I mean, not tonight, obviously, but.
Well, I was going to ask again, is there a sense of urgency that we make a recommendation to the council on this?
No, there's not, but, no.
Okay. Any other discussion amongst the commission?
I mean, I understand, I agree that, I understand what Commissioner Nick is saying, but also, I trusted Joey from his years of experience working for DOT as chief engineer and his years with the parish, that whether he's here or not, that he put in his due diligence and research before making this proposed to us. So I'll make a motion that we pass to the council for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kluat to recommend to the council that they approve. Is there a second? Okay, that's going to die for lack of a second. Do we have an alternate motion?
Make a motion to defer until we can get with Joey and have some kind of presentation from him.
Have a motion to defer, would you say to the next meeting as opposed to when we can get with Joey?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion to defer until the next meeting with a request that Joey be here to, or prior to the meeting, he can provide some written information to us. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Villa. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay. I'm going to ask you to cast your votes, please. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. 12B, Mr. Fournier, do you want to address this one?
Yeah, again, this is a request by Mr. Turow, the parish engineer, and this would actually create a whole new section in the subdivision specifications where we're going to do an asphalt rejuvenator emulsion of bituminous pavements. And basically, this is an overlay that they would put on the asphalt that would basically, assist with the cracking that was occurring prior. All right, so these two things kind of go hand in hand. But if you'd like to defer this one to the next meeting, when we have Joey here, we can have him explain further. Right?
Okay, well, before we do that, this is...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so...
I thought it was asking questions.
Not yet. So we are going to enter into a public hearing to recommend approval or denial to the parish council. Amendments to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code. This is going to be 12B. An ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish ULDC Appendix 14 Subdivision Construction Specifications, Section 6.1. It's a new section. Asphalt rejuvenator emulsion of bituminous pavements. So I'm going to ask if any of the members of the public who are in attendance would like to comment on this issue. Okay, the public hearing is closed. Okay, commission discussion. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, is this the project that Joey Turow was discussing with Ms. Casso, I believe? They had done a project in her neighborhood or her subdivision?
That may have been. I'm not aware of that one, though. But,
Okay.
I'm
I
not
heard,
sure.
it strikes a chord with, I thought that he had spoke on this already, and
Yeah.
I'd read some of the information, or heard some of the information that he gave then that I felt like was in line with what we're trying to do here, and I think
Right.
by all accounts, it seemed like
Right.
a strong recommendation.
Yeah, it's not an atypical type of treatment. Any other questions or comments? Any no discussion at all? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Kluat. Any further discussion by the commission? No further discussion. Cast your votes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This passes unanimously. We will now go into item 13, old business. And if you recall, we deferred this at our last meeting. We deferred it to this meeting. This particular ordinance relative to our recommendation was a two-part. It was a two-part item. One of those parts related to the process, and one of those items related to a percentage of wetlands change from 15 to 40. Correct me if I'm misstating this, but the change in the wetland percentages 15 to 40 has already been approved by the council. That's a moot point at this point for us, so there's no reason for us to take that up.
Yes, Chairman, that is correct. The final decision has been made. It was actually brought here in error. So we're just going to be looking at the jurisdictional statement tonight.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
members
sir.
of the commission, as you stated, this was an item on last month's agenda, and you had asked us to come back with more information. And you asked us to consult a professional who deals with wetland delineation. I'd like to introduce Rebecca Gaspard with CK and Associates. They've worked with the parish before. We have a contract with them doing other work. And Mr. Alex Sheffield is also here from CK Associates for any occasion. They have a slide presentation they'd like to make to you. Thank you, Rebecca. Go ahead.
And as we kick this off, I'm familiar with CK Associates. I'm not sure if the other commissioners are familiar with CK Associates. Would you like to know a little bit more about the company before we get the presentation? Or are you satisfied to go directly to the presentation?
We'll go to, yeah, we can do the
Okay.
presentation and ask questions.
Brief introduction into wetland delineations and jurisdictional determinations. To perform a wetland delineation, we use two USACE-provided documents, the 1987 Army Corps Delineation Manual and the 2010 Regional Supplement. Ascension Parish is located in the Atlantic Gulf Coastal Plain region and is under the jurisdiction of the New Orleans USACE. So with that, who can conduct a wetland delineation? Using those guidance documents, anybody can conduct a wetland delineation. However, not everybody can do this accurately. USACE will not review a blatantly incorrect wetland delineation. It is strongly recommended that a field professional attend the 38-hour Army Corps wetland delineation training program, in addition to the regional supplement training. In addition to that, you have several other certifications, such as your professional wetland scientist and additional soils, hydrology, and plant identification classes. Every delineation can be broken down into three basic parts: background research, field reconnaissance, and reporting. Starting with our background research, we use a myriad of different publicly available resources that the Corps also uses for their jurisdictional determination process, such as soil data and elevation data. In the field, we are looking for three different wetland indicators: hydrology, vegetation, and soil. Each of these wetland indicators has supplemental USACE-provided guidance documents on how to determine hydrology, vegetative conditions, and soils. One of the most important parts of our wetland delineation is our reporting. This is a consultant-created map, and this is a combination of everything that we mentioned in the report. Oftentimes, USACE will use this map to create their jurisdictional determinations. So we have two different types of jurisdictional determinations: a PJD, or preliminary. This takes about 4 months to receive, and it assumes all features on your property are jurisdictional. These are valid for 5 years. We also have an approved jurisdictional determination. This takes a little bit longer. A significant nexus evaluation is conducted, and this is when the Corps issues an official determination of jurisdiction for aquatic features on your property. These are both valid for 5 years, and you can have either or. You don't need both. A quick PJD example. Here you can see it is clearly labeled a preliminary jurisdictional determination. We have two features here, a wetland and a water. These are both considered jurisdictional. Both will need to be permitted and mitigated for if there are planned impacts. Second is an AJD example. As we mentioned before, often the Corps uses a consultant-provided map to issue their jurisdictional determination. This is a map pulled out directly out of a report, and as you can see, there is an approved jurisdictional determination stamp on there from Mr. Nethery. And so what this means for timelines, delineations take about 2 months to complete with another 4 to 8 months for USACE review. Currently, when you are applying for your preliminary plat, you are required to have a valid jurisdictional determination. What is proposed is that the information we as a consultant provide to the Corps for a request for jurisdictional determination be used for preliminary plat, and when you get your final plat, you can have an approved or valid jurisdictional determination. Other things to consider with your USACE permitting, there's a lot of general and specific conditions listed in there. Some of those include the need to get local, state, and parish approvals, and to not have your approval would be in direct violation of their USACE issued permit. And that is it, short and sweet.
So, good presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone, commissioners have any questions?
Yeah, so we're, essentially, the preliminary is a 4-month, and then the approved is a 8-month timeframe. is what that's it.
Typically, that's all dependent on how complex your site is and the workload of the Corps
So
at
an
the time.
additional 4 months is what we're trying to circumvent here.
So it's a total of 8 or 12?
So to get your jurisdictional determination, it could be anywhere typically between 4 to 8 months for that, plus another 2 months. So total 10 months possible additional development time.
Okay. And the Corps of Engineers is on board with us shortcutting it and putting them off to the back burner? Or would they prefer to have the
Technically, a
process go
permittee is not supposed to move forward with their development until they have your approval.
Okay.
That's a stipulation in
answered
every
that question.
nationwide and individual permit.
Okay.
Okay.
The 2010 guidelines that y'all use is the newest and latest version?
Yes, the 1987 and then the 2010 regional supplement. That's specific to our region.
Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
No other questions? Mr. Fournier, you have any comments?
Yes, I just want to make sure that we understand that we're not asking to eliminate a jurisdictional determination. It's just the timing as to when it's submitted during the preliminary, during the platting process and the subdivision approval process. Right now, what we'd like to do is see if we can get a determination by an expert like Rebecca and CK and Associates and others that are out there, and have that submitted with the preliminary plat. When the final plat comes into approval, we will require the jurisdictional determination from the Corps at that time. And so they're not going to get away without submitting one. It's just a matter of when they're going to submit it, all right?
Any further comments?
One more question, Ms. Gaspar. Your submittal to the Corps of Engineers for your preliminary delineation, how often is it upheld versus altered or modified by the Corps?
If you are using a qualified scientist, typically it's not changed, or not changed by much. There's a buffer, usually about 5 feet, that the line can go either way. But like I said in the presentation, typically they pull exactly the map from the report and put a stamp on it.
Okay. How many?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr.
I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Nicholas. Yeah.
How many firms are there similar to yours here in Louisiana?
I'll answer that. There are a ton.
So
We have 40%
they can shop around and
of
pick anybody to go give them the map that they want. A developer could find the one that's going to be favorable to their.
Like I said before, the
You said a
Corps,
qualified scientist is my.
qualified scientist.
Yeah.
The Corps
So
will
does
not
everyone have that
review a
qualified
wetland
scientist?
delineation that is just blatantly incorrect. So moving forward with that, if they're expecting your approval, they also won't be in compliance with their issued permit to not match up.
Let me say this. While, your comment is that the Corps will pull the map and utilize that. The Corps is also going to do their due diligence, and they're not just going to accept what someone plops in front of them.
Correct.
If you've ever gone through the Corps to get a wetlands permit, you'll know how difficult that process can be sometimes. So while there are a lot of firms that will do it, and you know, and I have to say that I'm actually in that industry, so I have a good understanding of the process. The Corps is not just going to rubber stamp whatever you give them.
Correct. They do review all of the same information that we do, and they provide all of these different documents for us to use to submit those maps.
Yeah, my concern there is being involved with dredging projects that we also go through the Corps with. There's no wiggle room, and they don't like to be cut out. And they create more problems, it seems like.
I'm not here
Jumping
to
the
speak
gun.
on behalf of the court today,
Yeah.
just to the,
Yeah, they don't, there's no jumping the gun with those guys.
The Corps is the decider, and you're not going to get around it.
Correct.
Mr. Fournier, do we have any firms, Ascension Parish, does Ascension Parish have any wetland firms that are on a pre-qualified or a selected list?
I think we do. I know for a fact that we just approved ELOS, which is another firm, local firm that does this work. We just entered into a contract with him recently. I think Mr. Giroux has some information too about this in terms of when the Corps, varies from what the consultant has outlined. So.
Well, yeah, Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
We do have an engineering report.
Yeah, we do. So our firm, from other types of work, we're on a different angle sometimes. We're ordering or requesting wetland reports from many qualified firms like this, doing site due diligence and other types of things. And so I asked them, because there's some consultants, it's one of those things, the better the reputation that a quality certain firm has, which is like CK, those are the ones that the Corps almost agree with, because it's not to their advantage to be cutting corners, because that hurts their reputation for all other future work going forward. It's very rare a consultant's going to stick their neck out, a wetlands consultant for one project, to destroy their reputation, knowing they're constantly requesting work for public entities, private entities. It's ongoing. So I actually find from working for developers some projects, they're typically the ones pushing to be more conservative than what a developer would be asking them for. They're the ones that, are you sure that's wetlands? And it's not wetlands. They're like, it is. We're going through the Corps. We're not playing this. Going through this. You want us approved the first time, or you want to battle for a year and a half over a quarter of an acre? And that's where these quality firms, come in like that. So, and so I also asked internally, because we're requesting these, how often do the reports from qualified firms, does the Corps say that I don't agree with your interpretation? It's exactly what they mentioned here. Very rare, it's a very minimal when you have the qualified firms, which pretty much are the only ones that's really doing this work that's requested, that the Corps ever says, actually, I disagree. It comes down to the degree of accuracy of the width of I call it the magical colored pencil. You saw the drawings. You do all this hard work, and all you come back with is a map with a colored pencil drawing on it, So I just want to confirm, more than just what one firm's, everything she stated is consistent with all of the other qualified firms that we've seen do this work. And then for my many years as the ERA, watching all these preliminary jurisdictions, they've all been qualified firms that all make a statement on their thing that these are done with the requirements of exactly what you said. Well, it was 1987 as amended by the 2010 requirements. That's like the minimum industry standard requirements to even provide us to even receive a report. And then I believe the proposed language that you have here says must be from a qualified firm. And that is one of the things that makes you qualified, is that right there.
Have we ever had a subdivision that's come back at the final plat and had a change in any wetlands that anybody's ever delineated?
No, it's not worth the risk, because if a developer gets stung once, they have a mark on them from all future projects, especially if it's nationwide. All other projects, it's on their list, and the Corps remembers them. It's just not worth the risk. So I just want to provide some extra not comfort, but just expand on exactly what you're saying, more from one firm's perspective. I and Lou Max see multiple firms, and it's very consistent what you said there.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions?
Yeah, you were talking about there's one other firm that you entered in contract. Do we have a preferred vendor list of those firms that, Ascension Parish, I would feel comfortable more so with this and saying, we know that these 3 to 5 firms are listed, and approved, do we know they have the qualified scientist that Ms. Gaspar spoke
Yeah, I
of?
believe every firm.
A proven
that
track record?
Ascension Parish or either government goes for minimum qualifications. Most government states you have to meet the minimum requirements. Most of them are minimum 5-year experience, minimum 10 years experience. If anyone meets that, they're doing things, the right way. But some of these projects the developers buying, a JD was already done before they even purchased the project. So you're not always in control of who the consultants are, but it came back from the Corps. The Corps trusted they had enough information to say, yes, that is an approved, official determination. So it's not always on the front end. It feels like it's a mixed bag, especially if a property is always going through the sale process. Someone's already bought it, already got that determination before, because smart developers, you give me 10 acres, I see wetlands, I need to know how much I can actually develop. They'll do their due diligence, or say, if you already have the JD, we can go speed up this process, and I'll give you an offer price now. So I felt like perhaps your topic is could you always control who the consultant is on all future projects? You can't, because some of them are done before before it's even presented, and some of them are done after the fact, and some that you have to go through the timelines that I've just mentioned here.
Okay, so let's bring this back to center. What we're discussing is our process. What we're discussing is when this activity takes place, not whether or not the Corps or the consultants or who they are.
Right.
This is a procedural item for our code. So do we have any discussions or questions on that?
Yeah, that was
Relative to changing our process, recommending approval or denial for this change in process?
No, that was my concern, was that who it was making that recommendation, that PJD, you called it, was it someone that we here in the parish determined to be a qualified scientist and firm, or are we just letting the developer pick out of a hat?
That's a separate issue.
Yes.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to recommend approval or denial by the council?
I make motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Vila to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kluat. Further discussion?
I oppose.
Okay, cast your votes, please. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let me see. Mr. Vila, Nassar, and Kluat in favor. Miller opposed. And that the motion is to recommend to the council approval, was the motion, for clarity. Correct, Mr. Vila?
Correct.
Okay. With that, we'll entertain a
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn from Mr. Miller. Second by Mr. Kluat. Anyone opposed? No opposition. Meeting's adjourned.